I was not expecting it. And then it's like John Hamm is in the scene too. And I'm like, stop it. You're going to kill me. I've heard that from a few filmmakers, and, I was like, I don't want to know who did it, and you don't have to tell me, but this guy he's an ass. You can bleep that out. I don't know if this. The Hollywood
Welcome to the Hollywood Dream podcast, the podcast where we talk to film and TV professionals about their journey towards reaching that big Hollywood dream, whatever that dream might be to them. And in today's episode, I'm sitting down with Anthony Devito. Anthony is the co-founder and producing director of the Art of Brooklyn Film Festival, an award-winning film festival that celebrates media and film from Brooklyn and around the world. Aside from that, he's also an established actor. He has appeared in the film Bros, and recently he had a role in Apple's TV, The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston and John Hamm.
Hi, how are you? I'm so excited to talk to you.
Hi. Me too. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. Your brand new podcast.
I know. I wanted to do this podcast to celebrate the people behind the scenes, not just the people in front of the camera. And you're like, you do everything. You're a producer. Okay. You're a filmmaker.
I'm both.
So I want to celebrate you both ways.
Thank you.
So you used to work in advertising and marketing, right?
Yeah. Well, I always kind of had the bug to perform and, do comedy. But I was always too afraid to really kind of go for it. It wasn't something that I never thought of as like, as either a career or something I would do for real. And, when I was in school, I went to art school because that was always my thing from when I was a kid. I always drew. I thought that was what I wanted my career to be. I wasn't sure what it might be, what form it would take, but that was what I wanted. And, so I went to art school and, I was an illustrator. I freelanced for a few years when I got out of college, but it's very difficult, especially when you don't, when no one teaches you this was in the 80s and nobody taught you how to market yourself. There was no internet. So it was difficult to kind of establish yourself. So I got a job as, a junior art director in an agency. I kind of taught myself to to design things on the computer, which was very new at the time. I made a portfolio and I got a job, and then I that was my career, using my art background as an art director in advertising. And, I got to the point where my enthusiasm for it kind of peaked, and I realized I didn't love it, but I was good at it and it was a good job. So actually in the first time I decided I really wanted to perform and do stand-up was a friend of mine that I used to work with had taken a class at Gotham Comedy Club, a stand-up workshop, and then he performed one night, and a bunch of us from the work went to see him, and that was the first time I had ever seen somebody that I knew personally on stage, and it was really like, it lit something in me. I got very I remember the feeling. I got very sweaty and excited, and I was like, I want to do that. That was the kind of, for me, I was like, if he's doing it, that means I could do it. And I ended up taking the class that he took over the summer. Mm-hmm. This was in 1998, and my first performance doing stand-up was at the end of the class, and I loved it. And I kept going and doing and performing more and meeting a lot of people, a lot of whom I'm still friends with today, actors and comedians. And I slowly realized for myself that I didn't really want to be a stand-up comedian as my career. I wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
But I had no background or reference for acting because I didn't know anybody that did it. Like I said, I went to art school. I didn't study it in school. But I felt like stand-up was like, okay, it's just me on stage with a microphone and material that I wrote. I can do that. And then I realized as I wanted to become an actor, I started to study improv. I took improv classes at the Upright Citizens Brigade, and I learned how like to do scene study and things. And that was kind of when I transitioned out of doing stand-up, which I got to love, and then I started to fall out of love with it.
Yeah.
And I realized that acting is really what I was interested in. And that's when I started to go on auditions and things and learn. It was like on-the-job training because, like I said, I didn't, that wasn't my background. So I had to learn and get better at it. And, you know, that was my path.
And now you
into
do
it.
a lot of things. Do you feel like acting is your number one, or is there something? Because you're a writer, you're a festival director, you're a producer. Is acting your number one, the one you're most passionate about?
Yes. It's an interesting, you know, there's no one answer, but I'm going to start with yes, because, you know, when you're an actor and you're trying to work, it's very easy, especially if you grew up the way I did, which was kind of the only valid work that I was ever taught was that you got a paycheck from. You know, if you didn't get if it wasn't paying a bill, it wasn't really work and it was a distraction. You know, it's that working class mentality, which, you know, that's always been kind of a challenge for me is, you know, if you define yourself as an actor just by how often you're getting paid to do it, that can be it can really depress you, and it can make you feel like you're failing or you're not really doing it.
Yeah.
But it has to be something that you are always, it's got to be always there because, you know, I'm always, like you said, I'm working on 15 different things in a day, but then I will get an audition and say, okay, you have an audition for this. I'll get an email. And then, you know, I have to put all that aside and be like, it's all about acting now. And unless you consider yourself an actor all the time, it's really hard to, you have to always be like what's that for, you know, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Like you have to always be, okay, acting now. And I remember when I first started doing it, I would often not give it the energy that it required or deserved. I would almost see it as like, oh, I got to do this audition, but I'm busy with work. It's like, but this is your life.
Yeah.
It has to figure out how do you put work, whatever the thing paying your bills, how do you make it fit? And it's challenging because acting doesn't, like I said, it's not something you can kind of turn on and off. If you don't think of yourself as an actor, you won't be able to deliver what you need when the opportunities do come your way. It's almost like you going to the gym. It's like if you stop going to the gym for 8 months, you're starting from zero. You're not, you lose the gains that you made. So it's the way I define myself, but it has to fit in everything that it takes to like stay alive in New York City. You know? You know.
I know.
Excuse me.
Will you consider going back to stand up now?
Probably not. From what I used to kind of get out of stand up, I get in other ways now. You know, it's stand-up is also like, at a kind of an independent level, depending on like, it's not like you're a headliner at comedy clubs and you're touring around the country. If you're doing stand-up in the city, like for me, most of the people that I knew from doing stand-up, a few of them still do it, but they do other things too. Like they've moved on, they're producers, they're writers, they're showrunners. A lot of them have moved to LA over the years. And, there's a lot of very young people in stand-up in New York, and I don't know any of them really. I know a few, but I wouldn't get the same kind of satisfaction out of doing it kind of where I felt like it was a grind. Like, oh, I have to do 3 sets a week and I have to book shows. It's just not something that I never liked that part of it anyway. Once I'm on stage holding a microphone, I'm like, I'm in heaven. But everything else kind of leading up to that, I'm not really, I have to see, okay, how much energy do I really have? I have to be realistic with myself. And how am I using that energy in a way that I think will get me, will be satisfying to me?
Yeah.
So I make videos, I do staged readings with other actors, I do things like that for me give me that kind of sense that stand-up used to do.
Yeah. You're actually really funny on Twitter. You're a good follow.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Twitter is a funny kind of, it really is me. I feel like I'm telling things into an empty room. Like, did you see what happened? But I used to, this is interesting. It's like when I stopped worrying or caring that that Twitter could like help my career in any real way that I could see.
Yeah.
I started to have a lot more fun with it. And I felt like when I did stand-up, when I stopped caring that my set was like, oh, would this be a good set for a television show? Or, are these jokes in this row the strongest set I can put together, the strongest 7 minutes or whatever? And I just, I got more like myself on stage as I was off stage, and I got funnier and I had more fun doing it. And I feel like Twitter's the same way. I kind of, when something pops into my head that I have to kind of get out, I just tweet it, and I don't care so much what the results are. It's more about, it helps me kind of get things that are bugging me out of my head so I can move on.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it's fun, and I follow a lot of people that I've followed for years that make me laugh and other things, and that's kind of what I use it for.
I think that's the secret for everything. Just like not care. Once you let go of that, like whatever it is you think is gonna get you, even with auditions, like you think you're gonna get this audition, that's when you're more stressed and it affects your audition. Mm-hmm. Once you release that, that's when you have the best time and you have the most fun.
And that's true. And I learned, it was, because of, again, I had to unlearn some bad habits when I first started auditioning. And one of the bad habits that I kind of learned, or was more of I transferred from like, going to Catholic school and all that stuff. It was about, and being a people pleaser, which I've been working on for a long time, which was about, what do I think they want to see?
Yeah.
And thinking, okay, I'm reading the script, they want it read this way. And that's one of those things that intellectually might make sense to you, but it doesn't work. And what it does is it stops you from being authentically you. And they respond to your energy and like your choices that you make, and maybe something that surprises them. And it may not be right for the audition that you're doing right now. It may be, you know what, he's not right for this part. They want to go a different way, but he's interesting. Let's keep him in mind. And once I started doing that, where I was like, I know how to break down a script. I understand the dynamics of the scene, even if it's a really short scene, and what the character I'm auditioning for, why he's there, why he's in the script. And then I know all that, and then I'm like, okay, but then what can I do with this that nobody else can do? Because we all do the thing that nobody else can do, because we're all unique.
Yeah.
So, and if that makes a connection with them, then you get a callback or a booking, and that's great. But even if it doesn't get you that job, it shows the casting director that you are a pro and that you are ready. Like, you're ready. Like, they can slot you in. Like, okay, we know he can do this, so we don't have to worry about him. He may not be right for this, but he or she or they are like, they understand what they're doing, and they get it.
Yeah.
And that's that's a real big part of the challenge, is how to, especially with self-taping and stuff, it can be the way it is now. You're all by yourself in the room, and when you audition in front of a casting director, they can give you a note and say, you know what, do it again, but you're much angrier this time. And then they watch and say, okay, how do they internalize that note, and what's their second audition like that's different? And did they incorporate it in a way that was like, yes, I like that. When you're self-taping, you can do, they always say the good thing about it is that you could do 1,000 takes, but the bad thing is you can do 1,000 takes and you can really get in your head. So it becomes part of the process is, how do you put all that stuff aside and be like, okay, this is what I'm bringing to it, and not worrying too much if it's right or wrong, or if it's too big or if it's too small. Just like, this is my choice. Make a choice, a real choice, and then just, then it's out of your control.
Yeah. How's your the audition process for the morning show that you were just in?
It was interesting. It was a self-tape again, so I wasn't in person with anyone. And I read the script, the scene, and to me, I read it and I was like, I know this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I get who he is, right? And I decided to, it was funny because at first I read the scene and I was like, okay, I see what this is. And then I looked closer and realized that the person opposite was Jennifer Aniston. And I was like, what? I like that. And then I was like, but just put that out of your head, because for me, and I think for a lot of actors, but I would be like, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to, I'm glad that they asked me, but there's no way. And there's a way to say that to yourself where you defeat yourself.
Yeah.
But there's also a way to say it to yourself, like, you know what? Maybe this is a long shot, so I'm just going to go for it. And I chose that route. And, growing up in Brooklyn my whole life, I have kind of, as I became a professional person, etc., you kind of learn to, you internalize this feeling of like, I have to tone down, like I have to watch my speech. Is my accent too thick? Are my mannerisms, like, do they make me sound like a doofus or like a guy from the street? And I'm not that, but I'm from Brooklyn, so there's a certain, like, people from other parts of the country will key in on it, like, right away, like, oh, okay, I know who you are. It's like, you don't really, but it's like saying, you hear someone with a Southern accent and you think they're like a redneck. No, they grew up in South Carolina or whatever. So, but for a part like this, I was like, here's where I get to kind of unlock that and really push it. And be the type of guy that I in a million years would probably not be, especially to a woman in a scene. But this guy he's an ass. You can bleep that out. I don't know if this.
Well, I'll bleep it out.
So thank you. He's a real jerk. So I just had fun with that. And also the idea that, like, he's not just aggressive, he's really offended by the circumstances in this scene. He's very offended. So I found two things that I could kind of use to drive the anger, not just generic yelling. And I had a lot of fun with it. And when they told me that I got it, I almost fell on the floor because I was not expecting it. And then it's like John Hamm is in the scene too. And I'm like, stop it. You're going to kill me.
How was that day when you were on set?
It was intense because, I knew that I hadn't met them yet, but I got to Coney Island, which is like, I drove from my house. It's like 10 minutes. And I've been to Coney Island a million times. So it has a lot of kind of like family significance for me. And it was like, I never shot on Coney Island before. And I certainly never shot anything like this with people at this like level of fame who I also admire. Like, I'm huge fans of both of them. Right?
Yeah.
So, they do the thing where you fill out, you get there, you fill out your paperwork or whatnot, and they put you in your little trailer and you wait and you wait and you wait and you try to like not let the adrenaline, because the adrenaline like ebbs and flows. So you're like, all right, I got to try to like maintain. And then they call you to set, and I'm like, and they built the thing on the boardwalk, and they're putting me in it and placing me, and they're like, okay, this is this, this is this. And then like 30 seconds later, the producer's walking up with the two of them. And it's like, I feel like I'm watching TV, but I'm like, they're 10 feet away from me. Because like, they're so like, everybody else went blurry. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Jennifer Aniston and John Hamm. And I'm like, all right, be cool. You're an actor, they're actors. And they could not have been nicer. They were so nice. And it was just like I'm laughing telling you the story, because every time I tell the story, I get like excited again. It's very funny. And then I had to kind of give myself a little talking to in my head and saying, listen, you booked this part because you did a good job on the audition. They like you and they see you as a colleague. This isn't like a Make-A-Wish thing. They're not doing it out of charity for you. You didn't win a contest. You know what I mean? You didn't so,
you were there because you deserve to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I have to tell myself sometimes. Like, this isn't a mistake. It's not a dream. Like, you are really here, right? You're really part of this.
Yeah.
And they I met them, and then like less than a minute later, we're running the scene and we're rehearsing it. And I'm like, I'm just acting with Jennifer Aniston. Oh, and cursing her out. No spoilers, but like it's a pretty intense scene.
When is this coming out? Is on Apple, right? Because I want to see it.
They have, it's Apple TV, I just saw I just saw an article online that they have wrapped shooting for the season. Okay. They haven't mentioned when it will premiere yet, and I don't even know. I don't remember what episode it is in the season. But as soon as they met, I'll see when it comes out. So I'm like waiting too. I don't know.
Okay. I'll sign up for Apple TV so I could watch it.
I know. I don't have it either. I just got a new phone, so I get 3 months free.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'll probably sign up though, like, so that I have it. And anyway, yeah. So it was kind of a weird, like, I felt like I was like outside of my body for a minute, because not only am I like acting in a scene with Jennifer Aniston and John Hamm, but it's
Mhm.
like I said, it's an intense scene. They let us improvise a little bit, which made it even more intense because I was saying stuff that they weren't expecting, and so their reactions were in the moment.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, I had this moment where I switched in my head from like, oh my God, this is really happening, to this is how it should be. Like, you are
Exactly.
holding your own with these people and you're all in a scene together, and look at you go. It felt really like and I needed that. I needed it. Like, it came at the right time for me. Um and it was just like we did a bunch of takes, and they just were like, and at the end, when we were done, we wrapped, I asked them if I could have a picture. I was so like, but if not, it's okay. And they were like, get over here. And the director took a picture of the three of us, and I was like, what's happening? Oh, and this is the best. Between when we were still shooting and they had to like move lights and stuff, they had little tents set up by the boardwalk, and I was hanging out. It was me and John Hamm in the tent, and I'm like, oh, I'm nothing. I'm just sitting next to John Hamm, and he was such a nice guy. Like, we were just talking, and it was funny because he was scrolling his phone, and at one point he went, "Oh no!" And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Coolio died." So it was the
What?
day that Coolio passed away, and
Oh,
I was like, "Wait, John Hamm just told me that Coolio passed away. Like, this is a." It just kept getting more and more like
oh my God.
surreal, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just like I said, I will say this to anybody, like, the two of them could not have been nicer. She was a total sweetheart. And yeah, it was just, I, I wish every acting experience was on that level, in terms of that feeling you get, like I felt like I was floating when I was done, and I was just so happy. And
Yeah.
you know, and then I get the other my other voice comes in and says, "Well, if you never book another job again, at least you went out on a high note." And I'm like, "Come on, I'm gonna be in other stuff." So, excuse me. So
That's
yeah,
good.
so that's my story about the morning show.
That's good to
It
hear
was
because
so good.
yeah, you hear so many horror stories about celebrities and how they treat the other, the guest stars and extras horrible. I had a horrible
Yeah.
experience
Well.
once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it
As
was
did
for
you say, as an actress or as an extra? I didn't hear you.
extra as an extra.
Yeah, extras really. That's hard. I did it a couple of times when I was first starting out, because I wanted to learn a little bit about what it was like to be on set, to kind of be ready for when I got a part that I auditioned for. But I couldn't. I did it twice, I think, and I was like, that's it. I can't do it. I don't know how, the stamina that you have to have.
I know.
And some productions are good to the extras, but many are not. And it's like, that if they could do it through CG, they would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
How was it growing up in Brooklyn? You've been a Brooklynite? Is that what they call the Brooklyn people?
Brooklynite, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All your life. How is
Yes.
life in Brooklyn growing up compared to now?
Well, it's there are things that are similar, but a lot is different. Um, I kind of, in my mind, break it up. 9/11 obviously was we all know what that did, but I felt like New York City and Brooklyn, the acceleration, the speed of the change happened in the years, like in the early 2000s. Um, and I never felt like growing up um, that there were parts of Brooklyn that were like too good for me. You know what I mean? Like that, maybe Brooklyn Heights a little bit, but even that, and like maybe Park Slope a little bit, but even that was very different back then. And I started to feel like, wow, so things are really changing. And Brooklyn, Brooklyn used to be an insult. It wasn't a cool thing. Uh, the word Brooklyn, or the concept of Brooklyn, was very different before all the, the rise of the hipsters and Williamsburg and all the gentrification and all that whole new thing that came in.
Yeah.
Brooklyn was not something that anybody ever used in a way that meant that they were complimenting you, or it didn't mean sophisticated. It meant like working class, like from the streets, or some version of that, like stupid. In a lot of ways, I noticed that the insults that people used to throw at Brooklyn got transferred onto New Jersey. It's all the same stuff, but I felt like it just, the stuff that they used to say about Brooklyn, they say about Jersey now. And
Yeah.
I used to do a joke that, like, the phrase Brooklyn based is like a compliment now. Like, oh, she's a Brooklyn based artist, or he's a Brooklyn based sculptor, or they have a Brooklyn based business, is like a good thing. And, when I was younger, much younger, like staying in Brooklyn was like an insult because it meant you were afraid of the city, or Manhattan. We always say the city, but we were
Yeah.
afraid to like cross the bridge into like the real New York, like the sophisticated New York. Brooklyn was not that. So, but you didn't realize things had changed until they change. And now it's taken me a few years to get used to it. Now I feel like it's a little bit better again. I feel like the people who grew up here are mingling with the newer people in a better way, but there are still, the gentrification thing is still a real issue, depending on what neighborhood you're in and all that. So it's not like that's gone away, but it doesn't feel like, like I said, Brooklyn was always an insult, and now it's not. So that's weird.
You created a festival to celebrate Brooklyn and the art scene in Brooklyn and Brooklyn
Yep.
filmmakers. How did that come to be? What was the inspiration behind that?
It's funny because it literally came from what I said about how much Brooklyn had changed. And we felt that, remember the show Girls was really popular, and that whole kind of thing. We felt that Brooklyn, the idea of Brooklyn was being redefined to refer to just a few very gentrified, like young white neighborhoods,
Yeah.
in a way that like left the rest of us like, it's like, yeah, I'm from here, but I'm not a hillbilly. Like, I'm an artist. And just, this idea that like, well, these are the only zip codes that matter, and that's where everybody wants to know about. And that's Brooklyn. And I was like, well, not so fast. So
Yeah.
we started the festival as a way to say, no one point of view gets to define what Brooklyn is, because it's a huge place. It's incredibly diverse. There are people that are immigrants. There are people like me that are from immigrants, but I'm fourth generation. There are ethnic populations. There are people that just moved here. There are lots of different points of view, and we had to make sure that like we were doing our part to say, you don't get to decide what Brooklyn is.
Yeah.
It's not a done deal. It's an open conversation, and we are part of it. So, and that was so I guess like most Brooklyn things, it started out of kind of like, oh, you want to start something? You want to fight? But it became more about how do we make sure that everybody feels welcome and doesn't feel like, oh, I'm in Brooklyn, but that's not for me. They don't want me there. Yeah, we want you. We want everybody. That's our thing.
Yeah. I know, and I've been working with the Art of Brooklyn for 3 years now. It's been great.
Yeah. Yeah, you have been fantastic, and it's really great to have you. No, it's like, because there's so much going on all the time, and knowing that, like, I can say, oh, Joannie, can you do da 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 da, and then I know she's doing it and she's great, and she'll keep me posted. Part of as it grows, part of the hard thing is for us is to, like, not treat it the way it did when it was really, really tiny. And, like, you have to give up control. But part of that is you have to trust the people that are working with you. And when you do, you have to remind yourself, okay, this person can handle this, and we will check in. I don't have to be on top of it because I have other things to do. And that's the way you really grow, when you trust the people that are working with you, that that they're going to do the thing the right way.
Exactly.
So, that reminds me, I have a whole list of tasks for you. I'm kidding. No, but yeah. So it has been growing a lot lately, and it's exciting, and it's always a little scary because you want to make sure that it, like, stays, like, you want to make sure that the quality and everything stays the way you need it to be, like, high. But again, that's also part of learning and using our experience. This is the 13th year in June. Yeah.
Looking back at your first year compared to this one, what's the difference? Like, how much bigger have you become, and how has the festival evolved?
Wow. Well, in terms of myself and Joe, the executive director, who's the co-founder of the festival, we have learned so much about how to do this, how not to do it, how to keep the quality high, how to grow, how to produce events. And, as we get bigger, the knowledge, the things we've learned along the way have helped us get bigger, because we know how to do this, and we don't have to start from scratch every time. We became a nonprofit. We had always wanted to, but it was, I didn't know anything about that world, and Joe knew something. Joe did, but we had to figure out how to become our own nonprofit, which we did in 2016. So then we were able to apply for grants, which we get. Our funding has gone up from the New York State Council of the Arts and the New York City Cultural Development Fund, because they see the value that we bring to the city. That's really exciting, and the grants help us produce things at a higher level. Also, filmmakers now know us and have had really good experiences with us. So every year we get the film quality goes up and up and up. Like, it's kind of amazing the level of filmmaking that's out there that doesn't really depend on money or budgets. It's just talent and dedication. So we have a screenplay contest that we run now, that everything is really, like, I feel like now we're not like the new kid on the block anymore. And because of that, we have, like, a good base that we can work from and keep figuring out how to, like, make it better and better.
What is the most stressful thing about running a festival of like an international festival? Because you're a festival now, it's it's international. You have films from all over the world. What's the most stressful thing
for us? I would say that the most stressful part is lining up the venues. Now that we're post. Not that the pandemic is gone, but now that the restrictions are gone, it's harder to find good places to show the films in. A lot of theaters or independent theaters have gone out of business. The prices have gone through the roof for the ones that are still around. scheduling and finding out, are they available when we need them? Doing things in different, we do things in different neighborhoods, as you know. Nobody else does that, and that adds an extra level of, it makes the scheduling more complicated. So I would say that is the most stressful part. Aside from, like, there's nonprofit stuff that's like applying for grants, or is always stressful, even though we've gotten really good at it. It's always a stressful thing. Creating and maintaining budgets, stuff like that. But from the filmmakers, what we do with the filmmakers, finding good venues that will help us have a great festival every year. It's just more challenging than it used to be. So, but we're on top of it, and it's like we work on it every day, so that we can make sure we have a good, like, solid, like, okay, this is a good festival.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any advice for anyone who wants to submit to the Art of Brooklyn?
Yeah, just go to our website. It's aobff.org, and you can read the guidelines, and you can see the deadlines, and you can see what we do and how we do it, and and see if it's right for you. We always encourage everyone to submit, because no matter where we are on our calendar of our call for entries, we watch every single film. I've heard filmmakers say that, oh, if you submit to a late entry, the festivals are already programmed already and they don't watch it. We don't work like that. We've literally programmed films we got on the last day of submissions, more than once. So, if you decide to enter, your work will be taken seriously. It will be considered. It will be watched. We have constructive discussions about it, and there's a lot of good work. So sometimes we have to reject work that we love because we just don't have enough room to show everything. But I will say, your film will be taken seriously, and you will be taken seriously as an artist. And then everything else is just kind of, the submission process. But, we're working artists ourselves, so we understand how important it is to take other artists seriously.
Exactly.
And with respect.
I know.
Yeah.
And I've been in festivals where they don't watch. I've been part of festivals where I know they don't watch everything. So I can promise you that we do watch every film at the Art of Brooklyn.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that. Once I started, one of the things that we started when we started the festival was, let's make a list of all the horror stories that we have heard about what other festivals do, and let's not do any of that. We don't, and I'm always surprised that's a thing, that people just assume their film isn't going to be watched. I'm like, that's crazy. You're paying money, good money. The least you can do is have your film watched. It doesn't mean it will get in, but it certainly won't get in if nobody sees it.
Exactly.
And there are other things, like we never upcharge a filmmaker. If you get in, we don't require you to buy a block of tickets to your own screening, which we've heard happens.
I've heard about that.
Like,
That's
all that kind of, I've heard that from a few filmmakers, and I was like, I don't want to know who did it, and you don't have to tell me, but we like to partner with the filmmaker to help promote the screening. But if we make the filmmakers buy the tickets, you can have a sellout crowd and there's nobody there because all the tickets have been sold. Like, that's not fun. We want to have people there. So we work really, really hard to try to promote the festival and get people in butts in seats, as they say. And we like to do that in partnership with the filmmakers. We don't make them do it. but we know that we tell them we need your help. Let's work together. So yeah, we try not to do any of those kind of shady tactics.
And what is the one thing that you love the most about running a film festival?
I love to seeing the work that gets made is really inspirational. Points of view that like are very different than mine. Stories that people tell, whether they're written or documentaries or experimental films, just kind of like to see the talent that's out there is amazing. And I also love the fact that, you know, we have been told by more than one filmmaker over the years that like, I didn't expect to get in because my film was weird and it got rejected by so many festivals. And to know that like maybe your festival gave an artist the kind of shot in the arm or like uplifted them in a way that they felt like I'm on the right path. I'm going to make a new film. You know, there's so many ways to kind of get depressed and shot down. Everybody's obsessed with celebrities and all that. It's like a film festival can really help an artist feel like we see you and we value what you did. And we're going to try to connect you with other people in the business that can, like, wherever you are in your career, can help you move to the next step. And whatever, that's why, you know, we have so many great prizes for the screenplay contest. It's like, you know, everybody ignores the writers, but the writers, there's no script, there's no movie, right? So we want people to understand that, like, we get you, and we think that your work is worth celebrating, and that means a lot to people. I know it means a lot to me. So those are the two, me being inspired by the work and also knowing that we are helping uplift artists. Those are my two favorite parts of the festival.
I know, same. I love that. I love hearing positive stories about people. I think there was someone last year who felt like you said that he was getting rejected, and then to get in was such a like an uplifting and motivating thing for him.
Yeah. Yep. You just have to line up with the right, like, you got to find your people. You know, they always say, find your tribe, find your people. And then it will click.
Yeah. I have one last thing, because I realized that I'm going on. I found I found a really interesting fact about you, that you used to work for the Fashion Police and Us Weekly.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Tell me about that experience. How did that job come to be, and like, how was that?
Okay. All right. It's actually a funny story. Is it still a thing? Do they still do it? I don't read Us Weekly. I haven't seen the magazine in a while. Maybe online? Maybe. So for me, the way it came about was, I was working in advertising at my agency, and, you know, there were certain times where we were totally slammed with work, like where you want to kill yourself. And then there was days when you're there, for whatever reason, there's nothing going on, right? So you have some free time. But there always used to be copies of the magazine around the office and stuff, and we would read them. And I would go to that page because I was like, oh, I know that comedian. I know who that comedian is. And I always thought the lines were funny. And I thought, well, you know, back then, like I said, there was no social media or anything. So I was like, what if I would write my own jokes, and I found like their main fax number. This is how long ago it was. It was a fax number.
Oh,
right?
my God.
So I would write a bunch of jokes, and I would put like from last week's issue. So I would grab a picture of, like, I don't know, Jennifer Lopez or whoever was, or Britney Spears, right? And I would write my own versions of the jokes, and I would fax them. And it was just a way to break up the day. And it was like, again, it was like kept my mind working. and like I like writing jokes. So I did it for a while, and a couple of weeks, and then I just stopped because nobody ever got back to me. And I had my contact information on there. And then I got an email from somebody who was an editor there, and apparently somebody had been taking my jokes and saving them and putting them in a folder. So they liked them and asked me if they were doing a special edition for Fashion Week. It was like a giveaway, and it was like a big one. It wasn't like a magazine size. And I couldn't believe it. I was so excited. So I said, of course. So I wrote a bunch of jokes, and they printed like 3 of them. And I was like, I felt like such a star because they had my little, like, my picture and my name. And, oh, FYI, we didn't get paid for any of it. It was all free.
Really?
So, yeah. Sorry to burst everyone's bubble. What's that?
It was for exposure.
That's exactly right. And because I was working full time and I was doing it for fun, and it was a real, like, again, it was a shot in the arm for me. I knew a lot. And then they started asking me to write for the weekly column in the magazine. So they would send us all the pictures, and we would dash off jokes and send them, like, the next day or 2 days later. It was a very tight schedule, but because I was already at work, and it was like a distraction for me to do it. And, it was one of those things where we always say artists shouldn't work for free unless you feel that there's something you're getting out of it. And I got something out of it. It was a cool credit. It was a thing that I could have, and then it got to the point where I was doing it for a couple of years, and I got to be one of their top ones because they used, like, a lot of my jokes, right? Because I got, like, I'm a weirdo, so I was able to write jokes in like from places that other people weren't. Like, my jokes were not the same as what everybody else wrote. But then I got to the point where they started to take advantage. They started to, like, shorten the deadlines and be like, you have to write stuff in 2 hours. And I was like, whoa, I don't have to do anything. I'm not getting paid for this. So, for me, it was a hard decision because letting go of an opportunity that I had created for myself was really difficult because it was validating, and they picked me, all that stuff, right? But I got to the point where I was like, this has run its course. I've gotten everything I'm going to get out of it, and I don't like being treated like this when they're not paying me.
Exactly.
So I quit. And this is advice I have for any artist you have to know when it's time to leave the party. I always stay too long at the party. That's my thing. Everybody else is gone, and I'm asking if I can wash any glasses or take out the garbage. You have to know when it's working for you. You also have to know it's not working for me anymore, and I have to step away. And it hurt. It was like a weird feeling because I was like, oh, I did it for so long that it became part of my week. And then I would, I would look at the magazine every now and then and be like, it's not as funny as, it got less funny as my tenure came to an end, because they started booking a lot of people who weren't even comedians. And again, I don't even know if they still do it, but it doesn't matter. I had a really good time doing it. It was cool knowing that my face and my jokes were, like, being read by, like, hundreds of thousands of people every week.
Yeah, I'm sure I read that magazine. I'm sure I read them sometime.
You probably did. Yeah, so that was the story of Fashion Police.
Well, that was a good story. It's all about creating your own opportunities, and you create that opportunity.
Yeah, and I wasn't desperate. I was like, if they don't like it, it's fine, no big deal.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was so much fun.
My pleasure.
I love learning more about it.
Good, and thank you for asking those hard-hitting questions. You really grilled me. You grilled me like a hamburger. No, they were great. They were great. I hope that this is a good episode of your new podcast, and it's exciting, and I hope you get a lot of listeners and that people really take something from it, because it's a good idea, and sometimes we need to hear from each other and be like, just hear people that are going through the same stuff that we are. It's good.
Yeah. It's not all about the people, the glitz and glamour and the people in front of the camera.
No.
Sometimes it is.
It's everybody. Everybody's important. Yeah, when it's me, it is.
When it's you, of course.
When it's about me, it's right. But when it's not me, other people can have a shot too. Why not?